So finally, we want to create our store dimension. To create our store dimension, we're going to have to read from two different databases. We're going to read from Zagi Small and from Zagi Retail to get information about the store. So again, a very common example in ETL, where in my ETL job, I am reading from multiple data sources, combining the data, and creating any transformation that I need to before I write it out to a new database, which is my data warehouse. So let's create two inputs. The first one, connect to MySQL, and we're going to go to, let's do Zagi Retail first, and we want all three tables because we need information from all three. So add all three, 1, 2, and 3. And they're all connected because the primary keys and foreign keys are there. So I want the store ID. I want the store name and the store size. I also want the type of cashier system that it has and the layout. I don't need any of the primary foreign keys that are needed to join those three tables. I don't care about those. I just want the values. The only key that I'm keeping is store ID because I'm going to need it in a little bit to do the fact table version of things. So I say OK. If I hit refresh here, I now have a new file that has all the information about the store that I can get from Zagi Retail. I'm going to bring in another input, and this time I'm going to read from stuff is a lot, so I'm going to go over here in the, I'm just going to erase it. You really should document, but I'm just erasing so it gives me some room. I didn't tell it where I was reading here, so I'm going to say input tool. And I'm going to connect to MySQL. And now I want Zagi Small. And if I bring up store, I have a region ID. I also want region because I want the region name. Is there anything else that I need to look up? No. So I bring up region. Okay, so I want the store ID so I can join to the other information. I want the store zip and the region name. If I hit refresh here, I've got the store ID, store zip, region name. Let's go ahead and join those two things together like we just did up top. Now I'm going kind of fast, but this is a video, so you can pause it. Make sure you go through and stop and make sense of the things that I'm telling you. We have to tell it how to join. Notice the signals for left join, inner join, right join, but we're going to join on store ID. So it knows how to combine the data. However, we don't need two versions of store ID, so we'll get rid of one. Left meaning that field is coming from the left side, this one is coming from the right side. We'll get rid of store ID. Okay, so we have store name, store size, the type of checkout system, layout, the zip, and the region name. Okay, so we've now combined a bunch of information about our tables. If we run it, we can see, now mind you, it's running all the dimensional stuff up top too. We can look here. So yeah, now I have all three stores, and I have the store name, the store size, the type of cashier, the layout, the store zip, the region name. Let's go ahead and give it a primary key. So we're here in preparation. Let's give it a record ID. We'll call it store key. And we can go ahead and write that out. We're almost done. We've almost created all our dimensions. Oops, I opened a new workflow. That's not what I meant to do. Off we go. We connect to MySQL. We'll call it dim store. Okay. We want to put a pre-create statement where we tell it what schema to use. I'm pasting it here, but We want it to use Zagi Data Warehouse, and we also want it to drop table if it exists, dim store. If you leave out the if store the first time you run this, you'll get an error because it's going to say that table doesn't exist. So it's good to put that if exists there on it. Let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so if we go to MySQL and do a refresh, we have all our dimensions there. Calendar, customer, product, store. We can query one. Now, we don't have our fact table yet, and also what we need to do is we need to create the primary key for each one of these tables. Now, we can do it manually, and I'll show you how. Or once we do it manually, we copy that code and we paste it to our Alteryx job, so we only have to do that once. So, for example, if we look at the calendar dimension, we hit the wrench tells us that we can modify it. I'm going to tell it that the calendar key is the primary key. Okay, that hasn't been registered yet. So I say apply, and you notice that MySQL creates code for me. I'm not going to apply it, but I'm actually going to copy it. What the heck, I can go ahead and apply it, but I'm going to copy that code. Now it ran, and now I have a primary key. Remember, each one of my dimensions is going to have one primary key, but I'm going to jump over to Alteryx to where I created my calendar key, and under post create SQL statement, I'm going to stick that code. So that means when it's done creating that table for me, it's going to go ahead and assign the primary key. So if I run this 20 times and 20 times I erase the calendar dimension, the next time I run it, it goes ahead and does the ETL to create the calendar dimension and then goes ahead and assigns the primary key for it. I'm not going to do it in this video, but you can take the same exact approach for each other dimension, and I provide that code for you in the solution.